Hello and welcome to the Creative Archive. My name is Kelly Ferguson. So here at the Creative Archive, I share practices and routines to slow down and document your life and do so in a way that feels meaningful and personal to you. Today, I'm excited to share what photojournaling is. A little bit about my background is that I am a photographer, and I've been a photographer for the last almost 9 years. And I was also a former home organizer. I'm going to share more about my organizing background as it does come in handy, especially when we get to the part where we're pulling out images from our family albums and people get overwhelmed by either like the volume or maybe the organization of the photos. And so I got you. I will help you through that. We definitely don't want you to get stuck in overwhelm and not be able to engage in this practice that I really, really love and I'm excited to share with you. So let's get into what photojournaling is. And the best way I could describe it is that it is working with an image and pairing it with like reflection and documentation. With documentation, it could be as simple as like the who, what, where, when that's happening in the photo that you may be journaling about. Or it could be like a reflection about the image or a short little story that you want to make. So there's a lot of different ways to pair writing, poetry, maybe even a little bit of sketching if you would like. I think that is also like part of the photojournaling process. And so that brings me to my next point here, and that is photojournaling can look a lot like scrapbooking because there is a little bit overlap, but there is a difference between the two. And how I differentiate scrapbooking from photojournaling is that scrapbooking is more about like the visual presentation of documenting an event, like a wedding or a trip, or perhaps a particular birthday or something. So like photojournaling, scrapbooking can include photos where you may write down some highlights of like where you were or who's in the photographs, things like that. Where I think photojournaling is more about reflecting and maybe going into greater detail about said event or a photograph that you may be writing a story about or reflecting on. Photojournaling can also just focus on one image. Maybe you write a little poem that the image inspires. Maybe, like, for example, I have this picture of me when I was 4 and I'm hanging out on the swing in our backyard. So maybe I am doing more of like reflective writing about being 4 and the things that I remember loving and doing in our backyard. And one of the things that I loved to do in the backyard was walk along our fence. I was a gymnast growing up, and so everything was like a balance beam to me. And I loved walking on the fence. I loved kind of going through choreography. And so I could write a story about that or just jot down some memories that this image can inspire. I'm not necessarily doing any gymnastics or dance on the cement wall in the back, but that's just like an idea of like how an image can open up and be a portal to sharing a story about something. So yeah, scrapbooking isn't really about that per se. It's just really kind of getting an overview of like you as a 5-year-old, and you've got a series of images. Maybe you have I'm trying to think of my own scrapbook. Like my mom put in some like of my gymnastics ribbons. And so there's a lot of like memorabilia that is in a scrapbook that isn't really part of the photojournaling process. The main distinction I want to make between photojournaling and scrapbooking is that the photojournaling side goes into a little bit more depth around the reflection piece and the documentation and the writing, as opposed to the scrapbook, where it's really kind of just getting a general overview of an event or time in your life. I hope that makes sense. There really isn't a whole lot that you need even to get started with photojournaling. All you need is a photograph and some paper to document and write things down. There is no right way to do photojournaling, in my opinion. You can make it super messy. You can have it be poetic. You do not have to be an artist or an amazing writer to do this. It also doesn't have to include a lot of writing. It can be just words, um, broken up sentences if you want. It can be a list. It can also just be the who, what, where, when, a slight little reflection on about a photo, and that's it. It can be as deep as you want. It can also be as superficial as you want. Photojournaling is about creating like a relationship with the images and your memories, as well as with yourself. Yeah, so I look forward to rolling out this beginning series of photojournaling with you. If you're resonating with this idea of photojournaling, I'd love for you to subscribe and hang out with me on a regular basis. And if you would love to leave a comment on what draws you into photojournaling, I would love to hear. Start up a conversation. You can ask a question, and I'd love to hear from you. All right, I'll see you in the next video.